Hi there, knife people, hello ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I will be reviewing this Vosteed Mini Nightshade, a pretty green titanium scales and S35E steel. This knife looks really great on paper, so I'm eager to get into this review. I have to disclose that the knife was provided to me free of charge by Vosteed, with full understanding that my review will be unbiased and I will not be providing affiliate links to their website or to their knives on Amazon. They get it, they're okay with it. Whether or not they will be okay with that after this review comes out, you'll find out by whether or not they send me any more knives. I have not decided what I'm going to do with this knife after I'm done filming this review because, you know what, I'll talk about it at the very end. So let's not waste time or mince words and get into this review. And here it is in all its packaged glory with a sticker and a tin box that also contains this pouch and, more importantly, spare Sigma springs. And if you watch my other videos about this brand, I call these springs Sigma because they are shaped exactly as a Greek letter Sigma. Actually, you know what? Here you go, bam. Okay, so here's the mini Bugout by Benchmade next to Vosteed Mini Nightshade. You can see the differences here. I get this question a lot. People ask me to compare the Sigma spring on the Vosteed to a Mega spring on the Bugouts and other crossbar locks. For some reason, folks think that these springs are going to be more durable than these. They are not made out of the same gauge wire. This wire here is 1.5 thou or 0.05 millimeter thicker, allowing for perceptibly lower compression ratio on the Omega spring. And as those of us who did not snooze in a physics class may recall, that when you apply the same input force to a shorter span of a spring, that will reduce its durability in cyclical loading and may even lead to a stress fracture sooner. But because Benchmade engineers chose a lighter gauge spring as compared to Vosteed engineers, they will perform about the same. And that was a long-winded way to say it. And so what would be the reason for Vosteed to not use an Omega spring? The answer is here. See how the wall thickness is maintained? Pretty thick. So if you made this handle out of a micarta, for example, as they like doing on some of their knives, micarta may have less of the cross or transactional strength than G10 or FRN. So that allows them to keep this wall thicker here, because if they should have tried fitting this spring in roughly like that, you can see that the wall would have to be at least a millimeter and a half thinner in this area. Obviously, I have not sat at the round table with Vosteed engineers, so I have no way of knowing all of this for sure. But if you have any insight to why Sigma Spring was chosen, feel free to comment and even disagree with me. At the very least, we looked inside this knife for the first time on my channel. So here's the knife. Crossbar lock, bearings, S35BN blade, thumb studs, titanium, three-dimensional sculpted handle. And you already saw it next to the Bugout, but here it is in its assembled condition. Basically the same size knife. And here's a mini Ritter Hogue, or in this case, mini Griptilian, all very similar in size. And here is Vosteed's Parallel, also very similar in size. And all three of these weigh about 2.5 ounces. Here's the big Bugout. And for the niche comparison, here's Benchmade Immunity. And since I don't own a full-size Nightshade, here's Fintiso Cobra, which competes with the Nightshade. in shape, size, and functionality. But with a durability improved button lock that has an extra stop pin, which makes it resistant to unlocking on spine whack. And here's Elijah Isham Reticulum Micro Knife, which was made by Bestech. The titanium finish is very similar, and the hardware has kind of similar machining patterns, so much so that I had to ask Vosteed whether or not they share an OEM. We exchanged emails, and they said that it does not, and they're not affiliated with Bestech. Mini Nightshade has a full 4-finger handle, at least for my extra medium hand, or I wear medium to large gloves. But let's talk about the blade. In my philosophy, blade is the heart of any knife, and the edge is the soul of this blade. And what is edge without a proper heat treat? If you agree with that mentality, please hit the like about now. What I just did is verified calibration of this tester. And as you can see, it's basically spot on because it's calibrated to be at 787 on a Lieb scale. And now I am applying a little bit of a gel. I explained in several videos how this procedure works. I'm not going to focus on it. What I would like to talk about is what alterations I had to do to this blade to even be able to test it. You see, the tang of the blade was not particularly flat, and when it happens, then the Lieb test doesn't work very well. And what I mean, it artificially lowers the results. So I had to put it on my sharpening diamond plate and sort of remove some material at the tang to make it as flat as I could possibly do. And until I've done it, the results were all over the place. Why does that happen, that the tang is not flat? Usually this is an indication that that first flat grind was done when the steel was in its soft form before heat treat. Now, I'm not talking about the primary bevel now, I'm just talking about the blade blank before the primary bevel was put on it. And that would present a concern if this knife was running on washers, because washers like flat tang to operate smoothly without binding. Now, the thrust bearings that this knife is using, they actually accommodate some of that unevenness, which is primarily why, I believe, the knife manufacturers introduced the bearings. It saves them a whole grinding setup to touch up those flats after heat treat, while simultaneously giving an increased quote-unquote flickability to the end user. So let me re-stipulate. The use of bearings was pragmatic, and the side effect of it was beneficial to those who like a smooth flicking action on the knife. And here comes the average. So I recorded all the results. That's the left side of the blade, that's the right side of the blade. And looking at it, I see two outliers, 65.8 and 63.1 cannot be included. So without even calculating the average, you can see that the values range from 58.5 to 59.5, 59.6. It's definitely a well-deserved meh. It's kind of on the lower end of the recommended range, and I would definitely prefer it 2 points higher. And so, what does it all mean? To answer this question, let's dive into Crucible Industries' heat treat response table. Crucible is where S35VN comes from, and they recommend 1950 to 2000 Fahrenheit for austenitizing, and then double temper at somewhere between 400 and 600, I would imagine, because going past 800 Fahrenheit for tempering would significantly reduce corrosion resistance, which is true for this entire family of steels, including S30, S45, and S90. Double temper, it's a pretty expensive process, especially if you add cryogenic treatment between the two tempering cycles. The thermal cycling is a huge cost driver, and that is why we pay much higher price for S35. Now I would like to share with you my observations after carrying this knife for about a week as my primary EDC. Here's my honest opinion. It is only great at two things: slicing in a straight line and looking good. Because of how broad this blade is and the unusual angle between the blade and the handle, peeling the apple is difficult. Slicing, it's a breeze. You can get as thin as you wish. You can see light through the slices I'm making. Let's talk about it in its gentleman pocket knife capacity. It would do quite well as a steak knife, or pork chop knife in this case, because that handle to blade angle is perfect for that. Except you end up hitting the plate with the belly instead of the tip, and that dulls the belly. What else would you use a small pocket knife for? Well, obviously the package opening.
So I've been instructed that there's a bag full of grass seed in this box. So I'm not to cut it too deep. And usually my technique is a perfect knife would be something with a tauntaun. I'd pinch it here and find my groove. And this way my fingers prevent it from going too deep. Or even with a drop point, I would pinch it at the point and go like this. This knife, I'm not sure. To hit it with a point, I have to bend my wrist a little higher, and cutting it with a belly is kind of feels weird. So I'm gonna try give it a shot here.
My opinion, this is not the greatest utility blade in the world because there's just too much thinking involved in this process. As I said earlier, straight line cutting is where it shines. Very, very slicey geometry, and it comes well sharpened from the factory. Where it starts struggling is cutting curve lines.
See, that's where it gets.
I don't know if it's a big deal because in the real world, unless you're a knife reviewer, you unlikely to have to cut carbon like this. But
What concerned me the most about this knife is a patina started forming on the blade right where I was cutting the pork chop, probably because of the acidity of those delicious juices. And that's when I can look back at the heat treat and speculate that they probably tempered it at too high a temperature. And these are the knives that I regularly use in the kitchen. And as you can see, there are no issues whatsoever with the S30V blade, but I do have some patina on CPM 154, which made me think, why would they actually sacrifice corrosion resistance by tempering it at a higher temperature? Possibly to increase the toughness of the blade because it is a broad and skinny blade. Unfortunately, such increase in toughness may lead to reduction in edge retention. Maybe we should perform a cutting test comparing these three Vosteed products. First, I'm going to strop all these blades because I've been using all of them. And while I'm stropping here, I'll use this opportunity to thank everyone who is subscribed to my channel, people that hit likes and share my link with their social media circle. I really appreciate it. And special thanks go to several people who, on a regular basis, donate super thanks to my channel. Sometimes it's a couple bucks, sometimes it's more. No matter the amount, I sincerely appreciate it and always point out that not only does it inspire me, but also humbles. This Vosteed raccoon with a liner button lock and 14C28 and blade kind of opened my eyes or reopened my eyes to that steel. And I also fell in love with this locking mechanism. And in this knife, they managed to combine budget price and excellent function. I'm going to start with a nightshade, mini nightshade. It definitely bites right in, but that continuous belly makes it a little more challenging to get into that paper edge. It's easier to do on a straightaway. This knife is quite the opposite. it just bites right in and stays in. That's a more slicey sort of blade shape. Let's see the raccoon here. So raccoon, confession, I resharpened it so it will cut better than any factory edge, which is offset by the fact that 14C28N, according to the tables, has less edge retention than the other two steels. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now ruin those edges on this staghorn, or is it a deer horn piece, by, running it 20 times. And while I'm doing this, as a huge personal favor to me, could you please go into this video's description and click on the link to the video clip of my new theme song that I created for my channel using AI music generation and lyrics that I wrote myself. And what motivated is the fact that I'm being contacted by numerous companies on a daily basis with affiliation offers who claim that they have watched and enjoyed my channel, which I seriously doubt. In fact, it's so important for me that you go and watch it now and give me the benefit of your comments. And I'm putting a link in the corner here. Please do interrupt watching this video and watch the clip and then come back here. And now let's get back to Vosteed. That's 20 times each. Let's see. There's a little bit of a tearing involved. And now I finally figured out how to get the bellied one. Yeah, definitely cutting performance is reduced. Let's see, 154 cm. Not an issue. You need to repeat it. And then 14C 28N. And here I feel a reduction. Well, I can't conclusively say which one performs better. And in itself, it's telling, right? Because the price differences are significant. It's a whooping $85 between it and Raccoon, and $20 compared to the parallel. So basically, what I feel like is a buyer pays for that superior heat treat opportunity that S35EN offers, but actually receives the performance of those two ingot steels. So my email exchange with Vosteed indicated that they are reintroducing the parallel with S35EN, which likely means increase in price. My recommendation to them is to get the heat treat spot on. Needs to be 61 to 62 in that range, and then it will be definitely a great selling knife. I did have a pleasure of carrying this extremely lightweight knife to the top of a very tall by Virginia standards mountain, where it definitely outperformed my fingertips in opening a bag of jerky. As far as running chips off of a block of fat wood, it did pretty well. That angle does allow you to put a lot of forward pressure toward the tip and through the belly. Controlling the cuts does take getting used to. It is, after all, quite an unusual knife. So primary function of this knife, and that is my conclusion, is to give you as much joy as possible. And that's about it. All right, so I promised you I will talk about what I'm going to do with this knife in the end of the video, and here we are. This knife originally was going to be a giveaway for one of my viewers. I think Vosteed is building up so much steam, gaining so much momentum in the knife world,
that I want to keep this knife for a little while. I'll still give it away maybe at my 20,000th subscriber giveaway, but I need to keep it now in my sort of library of knives, because when their next model and the one after next and next come out, I would like to have a reference point for comparison. So